Once there was a statue of a cheerful prince. The statue of the happy prince was no ordinary. It had been made as a memorial to the late prince, who was referred to as the Happy Prince. This statue was covered with a sheet of fine gold, with a diamond for eyes and an expensive ruby decorating the sword. The prince had never really experienced anything except life within the castle, where there was no sorrow or pain, and life seemed quite perfect. The happy prince watched over the people of the town as a statue. He saw a special side of life. The people of the town were poor and sometimes went cold and hungry. The rich always mistreat the poor people, and there was suffering among many in the town. As winter was approaching, the happy prince was introduced to a touched sparrow who had been left behind by his flock as they migrated south. Tired and quite wiped out by nightfall, the small sparrow decided to rest on the beautiful statue of the happy prince. The next morning, the sparrow noticed something strange. He saw that the prince was crying. Then, the sparrow asked the prince what was wrong. The prince told him that he could see a touch boy who was sick and didn't have any food or anyone to care for him. He suggests a request to the little sparrow, asking him to require the ruby from his sword's hilt and give it to the sick little boy. The sparrow was moved by the prince's compassion and agreed to try to do what he was asked. The next day, the prince again the small sparrow. The prince could see a young man sitting over a desk covered with papers and plastic bags. The young man was trying to play a musical instrument, but it was too cold to write down and the man was too hungry to do anything. The sparrow asked the prince if he should take another ruby for that man. But Prince replied that he had no ruby left. All that was left was his eyes, which were made from red diamonds brought from India 1,000 years ago. The prince asked the sparrow to pluck out one among the diamonds and take it to the man, in order that he could sell it and buy food and firewood and write his play. The sparrow took the diamond and left it by the young man's side. The sparrow was just about to go to Egypt, but the prince requested him to remain for another night. Reluctantly, the sparrow agreed. The next day, the prince had yet one more request for Sparrow. He could see a touch girl who was roaming the streets, selling matches and shivering with the cold. The prince asked the sparrow to pluck the opposite diamond from his eye and give it to the little girl, in order that she could buy herself some warm clothes. Despite being late to migrate, the small sparrow agreed and did as the prince asked. Then the sparrow realizes that the prince is blind now as he has no eye left. Being a loyal friend, the sparrow told the prince that he simply couldn't leave him and that he would stay and be his eyes. The sparrow becomes the eye of the prince and lets him know who is in need. The prince would then ask the sparrow to require a sheet of gold that covered his body and deliver it to the person in need. Faithfully, the small sparrow did so. Soon, the happy prince was stripped of all his finery and commenced to look dull, with nothing left to deliver to the town's needy people. The small sparrow, now cold and weary, died peacefully, falling to the feet of the happy prince. When the prince realizes that his loyal friend has died, the happy prince breaks down. The town people were not aware of the good deed of both the sparrow and the prince, and then they buried both in the earth. As the statue was sure by now, though they died, the hearts of the small sparrow and the happy prince were reunited in heaven. where they lived together happy and free.